Welcome to the Innovation in Agriculture and Energy Opportunity Zone. It is an honor to be here with such a dynamic group of leaders, innovators, and change makers from across industries. This summit represents a unique opportunity for us to collaborate, learn, and inspire from each other as we tackle the most pressing challenges in energy, agriculture, and other vital sectors. Together, we are moving forward in the future of innovation and sustainability, and I'm excited for the impactful conversations and connections we will make throughout this entire event. My name is Joyce Hunter, and I am the former Deputy CIO for Policy and Planning and the interim CIO for the United States Department of Agriculture. Currently, I am the Executive Director for Collaboration and Education for a leading organization focused on advancing the protection and resilience of critical infrastructure through research, collaboration, and education. Our mission is to develop and implement innovative strategies and thought leadership that addresses the evolving challenges in sectors like cybersecurity, food and agriculture, healthcare, energy, communications, and transportation. I am thrilled this afternoon to introduce you to Administrator Daniel Whitley from the United States Agriculture Foreign Agriculture Service. Administrator Whitley began serving as the administrator in January 2021. In his position, he leads efforts to open and grow markets, collaborates with foreign governments, international organizations, and industry groups, shapes U.S. agriculture trade policy, and oversees export assistance programs that mitigate risk and enhance U.S. agriculture products and global presence. He also directs the collection of market intelligence and guides initiatives to build agriculture capacity in developing countries, working closely with various stakeholders to ensure cohesive efforts. Prior to this role, Administrator Whitley served as the Associate Administrator for Policy and Analysis, where he led global market analysis and the Trade Policy and Geographic Affairs units. In this capacity, he led the agency's efforts to analyze agriculture export markets and policy formation to advance American agricultural interests. He has over 25 years of experience at USDA and began his career as an intern with the Farmers Home Administration in rural Louisiana field office. Later, he joined the Economic Research Service before starting his tenure with FAS in 2001. Since joining FAS, he has served in a number of leadership positions, including Deputy Administrator of Global Analysis. In this capacity, he represented the United States in key government international forums, including the World Trade Organization, the Asia Pacific Economic Corporation, and the International Grains Council. He is a native of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and holds a bachelor's degree in agriculture economics from Southern University in Baton Rouge and a master's degree in agriculture economics from Louisiana State University. He currently lives with his family in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Administrator Whitley, and we look forward to your comments.
Well, thank you, Joyce, for such a wonderful introduction. You read the full bio. I was hoping you'd skip to the end, but no, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And anytime I get a chance to talk about American agriculture, is something that's certainly near and dear to me, warms my heart, and just the overall mission we have here at the Foreign Ag Service. Our mission is simple. It's really to just increase U.S. ag exports worldwide. And we really do that better than any other nation in the world. A lot of people may not be aware, but we grow enough food in this country on a caloric basis to feed 1 billion people. We're only 375 million strong as Americans. So without overseas markets, our farmers would be in real trouble. So it's important that we develop overseas markets and they have opportunities to sell their products worldwide. And that's kind of what we do at the Foreign Agricultural Service. You know, I think we all learned a lot over the last 5 years since the start of COVID. We learned that our food systems aren't as strong as we thought they were. I've been telling this story to folks when I provide remarks. I remember going into a Harris Teeter, which is a grocery here, in Washington, D.C., close to downtown. And I went and to get some groceries during the height of COVID, and there was no meat in the entire grocery store. This is Washington, D.C. in 2020, downtown Washington, D.C., mostly middle-class community, zero meat in the grocery store. Never in my entire life would I think I would ever enter a grocery store in the United States of America and not be able to find meat. So we learned some very, very valuable lessons. None of us are immune from the shocks of factors beyond our control that could disrupt our food supply. I recall when I traveled to Dubai in 2022, and it was our first trade mission since COVID. And the line of trading partners to meet with us just went around the entire ballroom. And so many countries wanted to strengthen their ties with American agriculture because they understood one of the top characteristics of a trading partner is reliability. And American agriculture is more reliable than many of our competitors who provide food, fiber, and fuel around the world. And we were able to overcome the labor shortages because of COVID. Of course, there were supply chain disruptions. There was inflation, the cost of inputs. Fertilizer was the highest it had been in over 50 years, and that was if you could find it. And so producers faced a lot of storms. But at the end of it, American agriculture came out of it strong and prevailed better than many of our competitors. So much so, we've had the best 4 years of ag exports in the history of this country. We've set 2 records in the last 3 years of U.S. agricultural exports. So American agriculture is strong, but more importantly, they are resilient. They can deal with unprecedented challenges and overcome time and time again. And that's kind of what we've seen. So I'm extremely proud to be here at FAS and help support American agriculture achieve their overseas and international goals. And we don't have to look too far to recognize there are challenges that still remain when we talk about wars, 2 wars specifically that are raging around the world. What happens in these instances is it brings food insecurity to the forefront. And we know many of our fellow mankind are not as fortunate as we are. They may not have readily available food, or it may not be accessible, it may not be affordable. And American agriculture plays a key role in that space to ensure we can supply markets near and far. And we have a number of programs, food assistance programs, capacity building programs, where we do our part to help feed others all around the world. And so that's something that has become increasingly more important, and we're more conscious of as we hope for peace around the world. But we know that without that, there's all these challenges with food security. Now, there's one question every single person who works in the global agriculture space must answer, regardless of what you produce, regardless of what country you reside in, regardless of what your beliefs are. We got to figure out a way to feed 10 billion people by the year 2050. And the reality is the only way that's going to happen is we embrace and we adopt science, technology, and innovation. And American agriculture is the best at adopting science, technology, and innovation. Unfortunately, we've got some trading partners where we've got to do some important work to help educate on the values and the virtues of modern science when it comes to production agriculture. Without that, my fear is we will exacerbate ongoing food insecurity problems in parts of the world like Africa and South Asia and parts of the Middle East. And it's up to us and our fellow trading partners like Europe, like our South American producers, like our Black Sea producers, to understand that science is a benefit to food security around the world, that science helps solves all of these problems. So we're certainly pushing efforts. Our producers are doing some of the best work you can imagine. You couple that with the climate change discussions. Obviously, there's a need that producers all around the world produce their products in a more sustainable way. We've just seen some extreme weather in parts of our world that disrupts the ability to grow agricultural products. It disrupts communities. It costs taxpayers dollars to rebuild and repair. So there's a role for agriculture, global agriculture, to produce products in a more sustainable and climate-friendly way. And that's what USDA is leading on. We have the Partnership for Climate Smart Commodities, which is over 140 different projects. It includes every agricultural commodity group, every state is involved, and all of our land-grant universities involved. It is a whole of ag community approach, and we're seeing phenomenal results. The dairy industry is probably one of my favorite examples. Most of their industry is near or already at net zero emissions. They figured out a market for every part of the animal, a market or a use for every single part of the animal and its byproducts. So we're excited what we're doing in the space around sustainability and having ag be part of the solution. I hear people all the time. I got a lot of friends who all they know about agriculture is going to a restaurant and ordering off the menu. Okay. And I hear them talk about climate change, this sustainability act. They don't know what they're talking about. But it just pains me when people say that ag is the problem, that eating meat is the problem. No, ag is part of the solution. Agriculture has the ability to sequester carbon, capture emissions, reduce emissions better than many other industries out there. I grew up in Louisiana, and we like to say Louisiana is the lungs of our country's emissions. The forestry and the topography that we have is absolutely fantastic for sequestering carbon and capturing emissions. So we're excited about where agriculture is. And we know we have to make sure our producers are competitive. You know, we hear sustainability. Sustainability is a three-legged stool, okay? We often talk about environmental sustainability. We know what that is. But there's also two other components of sustainability: economic sustainability and social sustainability. First, on economic sustainability, we cannot ask farmers to produce food, fiber, and fuel and not make a profit. Farmers have to eat, farmers have bills. So it has to be an economic framework where there's profitability that is part of the encouragement for farmers to stay on the farm and farm. Not only that, we've got social sustainability. I mentioned earlier that we produce enough food on a caloric basis to feed 1 billion people. The planet can't afford us to not feed 1 billion people. The planet can't afford us to only feed 500 million, or the 375 million in the United States. That would put many of our fellow mankind in harm's way. So we've got to incorporate all three components of sustainability: environmental, economic, and social, into the calculus to support American agriculture. We're going to remain number one. Additionally, we want to make sure we support our producers and able to market and promote their products around the world. We've had unprecedented investments, over $1.3 billion in new funding to help agriculture market and promote their products around the world. We're trying to encourage farmers to diversify our traditional markets. Everyone knows China's been at the top. Canada and Mexico have been 2 and 3 for the better part of the last 20 years. And that's great, except when it's not. And we learned a valuable lesson when we had the trade disruption with China. We saw our exports fall from 33 billion to 9 billion in 1 year. In 1 year. Just a dramatic reduction in U.S. ag exports. So because of those lessons learned, we're trying to improve our program offerings and collaborations with industry to encourage them to diversify, identify new markets, identify trends where we can continue to be competitive and be the world's leader in agriculture. So we've got a lot going on here at the Farm Ag Service. We've got a great mission. You mentioned a little bit about our coverage around the world. We've got 100 offices around the world. We like to say we're American agriculture's eyes, ears, and voices on every corner, in every block, in any country. And so we stand ready to work. We stand ready to partner and support American agriculture, because we know food is the only commodity needed to sustain a life. Every time I say that, somebody says water. I say, well, water is a natural resource, but food is the only commodity needed to sustain life. So let me pause right there, Joyce, and see if there are any questions or anything else you may want me to touch on.
One thing, Administrator Whitley, is that you said was the truth is that food is definitely a big part of what we are doing. I mean, I always ask people when I do presentations, who here does not like to eat?
Right,
And I get a lot of rapid eye movement because,
right,
people, wait, what is she asking? So, if we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about everything from the dirt to the table.
yep,
And I think, when you're talking about agriculture and water, yes, you can only go about 3, 4 days without water before your brain starts to atrophy. But without water, you can't have agriculture either.
right,
So you need those healthy sources in order for
absolutely,
agriculture to be sustainable.
absolutely. Yeah, nah, there was a reporter back in 1906, I think it was, Alfred Ford may have been his name, and he concluded that there's only 7 meals between peace and anarchy. If
Mm.
humans 7 consecutive without food, they would no longer
Yeah,
respect the law, they would have
yeah,
no morals, and they would not respect authority. 7 meals is the difference between peace and total anarchy.
yeah,
Administrator
that's
Whitley,
true. Now,
I, I so appreciate you and your presentation. And it's been a while. I think the last time we saw each other was uh, well pre-COVID and in the
Okay.
halls of USDA. You know,
Okay.
in the room there where you were finishing up. I mean, you might have even been your inauguration uh,
Okay.
during that time. But happy to know as well that you're a fellow Baton Rouge. I'm not saying I'm part of it, but last year our IAEOZ Summit partner, I don't know if you knew this, was Southern University,
Okay. That's why I went to undergrad. That's my alma mater.
the Law Center.
Yeah, I know the folks well. Matter of fact, the president of Southern was here visiting me a few weeks ago, Dr.
Okay.
Dennis Fields. Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes. Um, we are we find ourselves after 5 years from starting at Virginia State to Morgan State to Alabama A&M, Southern. Now we're talking about Africa.
Mhm.
I think it's so 360 because whether it's for national security purposes, whether it's
Mhm.
global food security,
Mhm.
but what I think is most passionately warming to me is that this is our commitment to racial equity. This is our commitment to Executive Order 13985. We believe
Mhm.
that there's a economic pathway that
Right.
is rich, incredibly so, maybe unthought about in its fullness, to getting minority businesses, minority farmers, and all of their intellect, all of their experience, all of their land possession, and how it transfers over to and with Africa.
Right. Let me speak on that, if you will. So Africa is proving to be a kingmaker in a lot of conversations. You heard me mention the global population will be 10 billion people by the year 2050. Well, 25% of those folks are going to live in Africa. 1 in 4 of the global population will be in Africa by the year 2050. Many regions of the world, populations are declining. Africa is one of the few places where there's population growth. We see one of the fastest transitions from low income to middle class right there in Africa. And the potential in Africa is enormous. I've had the opportunity to visit Africa in the last year before. I traveled about 3 or 4 countries, and I can just tell you there are so many opportunities to do business. There are huge gaps in the technology they're using and what's available. There are
Yes.
huge gaps in the innovation that they're using and what is available. And I can just tell you, many of our competitors are already in Africa. China is in Africa.
Yes.
Russia in Africa. Europe colonized most of Africa. And of course, Brazil is in Africa. It's not a question of whether or not American agriculture needs to be in Africa. It's how fast can we get in Africa and protect our interests, both short, medium, and long term.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, some of our competitors who are already in Africa, they don't have our best interest at heart. And it will be a very big mistake if we don't embrace the opportunity that Africa presents. This is not your grandfather's Africa. Typically all the time, it's not your grandfather's least. Both of those regions have changed tremendously. And we need to start looking at Africa more as a commercial business opportunity and a customer, and not just a development or aid recipient.
Right.
And so do we, on a scale of 1 to 10, in your opinion, what infrastructure, and it's your department, Foreign Agriculture Service, is our readiness for, again, I go back to the equity side of, our minority farmers,
Right.
ready to do business in Africa, and what are the needs? Because this summit is always about taking policy, people, problems, and creating an action item for solutions. And so please share.
Yeah, Africa is a big place. So there are a lot of needs, both on the grain side, the meat side, the horticulture products, consumer oriented. There are a lot of opportunities. But we do have some regulatory challenges. We've got some policy challenges.
Okay.
Africa is closely tied to Europe with a lot of their trade agreements and trade regulations. And Europe and American agriculture, we've got our fair share of differences on production agriculture and what is scientifically safe and what may not be scientifically safe. And because Africa has been married to Europe, no pun intended, for so long and have adopted many of those policies and policy positions, it makes us difficult to just have ready access to all of their markets. Okay. So that's number one. Number two, Africa has some structural challenges when it comes to the certainty of businesses having their investments protected. Now, the business climate is not like in, Europe or the United States of America. There's still elements that gives business owners and leaders some pause, some concern. Is my investment safe? Is my product safe? Is my staff, my operations, is it safe? Is it safe from a intellectual property standpoint, right? So you still have some of those types of challenges that businesses have to kind of think about before they dive all the way in. But I do think you've got enough positive leadership on the continent. I think you've got enough progress and new purchasing power where all of those challenges can be overcome.
Yes.
We just need the commitment to get in and work with them to overcome those challenges.
On that note, I would really ask on behalf of the mission, the shared mission, for your staff, the designated staff, to look at the Africa side of who we have coming to the summit, what their positions are, what their backgrounds are, what their experiences in, and certainly you'll get an invitation from my team for a designee from USDA to come and spend the day with us. So that, and I don't know if you are aware that while we are sleeping, they will be having their summit, the summit, from 8 a.m., 8:45, 8:30 to 2 p.m. At 2 p.m., it is our 8:45, 9 o'clock time.
Yeah.
So there will be that time where this conversation will blend. It will carry over there. And similarly. So once again, I think the start of advancing a consistent curation of thought, ideas, policies ultimately will come from what we do on the 17th and 18th together. And again, I asked you to work with Joyce on the designation of the staff person that you'd like to see, because we're serious about this thing, man. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And by the virtue of our invitation of you coming, it would be no summit of on agriculture without the Foreign Agriculture Service.
I like that.
Absolutely. That's absolutely. So we really do appreciate your being here. I know we're coming up on time already, and I think those were very insightful questions by Keith. So in closing, I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you for you, Administrator Whitley, for your valuable contributions to the IAOZ Summit. Your insights into the critical intersections of agriculture, trade, and economic development have provided us with a deeper understanding of the challenges and opportunities ahead. And we look forward to working with you on those challenges and opportunities to come up with some mutually agreeable solutions that we can provide to those in Africa and those minority farmers here in the United States. Thank you again. Your dedication to creating sustainable solutions and fostering global cooperation truly inspires us all. We look forward to continuing this important work together. Have a great day. Live long and prosper.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you all.